Hello, welcome everybody to the special board meeting, Wednesday, May 28th. Ms. Coakley, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Green.
Here.
Ms. Hanson. Ms. Rutherford. Ms. Fauntleroy. Mr. Harrell. Ms. Martin. Ms. Moore. Dr. Peterson. Ms. Baker. Ms. McCullum. Ms. Lamey. Ms. Hurstis. Mr. Bro. Mr. Kuzan. Ms. Rufino Gallagher. There's Ms. Hurstis walking in now.
Can we please stand for the invocation and pledge? Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this afternoon together. Lord, please guide the decisions of this school board. Let it be for the good of our community, for the best of our teachers and the employees, Lord, and just continue to guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a short agenda, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Javia for consideration and acceptance of the memorandum of understanding between St. Tammany Federation of Teachers and School Employees and the St. Tammany Parish School Board as presented by the administration. Mr. Javia.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, board members, for having us and us this evening. It is, first off, I just want to tell you guys thank you. Thank you for allowing me to go to the table, to sit down with you guys, talk through some issues, talk through financially where we are in the school system, and being able to go to the table so that we could address some of the concerns of our employees and this district. So again, thank you all very much. We wanted to think outside the box. We wanted to kind of do things as well be known. I mean, no one loves working when we're talking about, stipends and this, that, and nothing's guaranteed, and this could possibly go away, and who knows this, that, and the other. So I asked the board officers when we met privately earlier this school year to allow me to think outside the box and to reimagine how we're paying our teachers and to see what we could do, all of our employees, not just teachers, but how we could think outside the box and make things permanent. Do what we can to show the employees that these are permanent pay raises moving forward. And there's a lot of complexity, and I'm going to kind of talk about some of that in here in just a second. Because of Act 1, we really have to think about a lot of things. You can't just think about experience. Back in the day when I started teaching, it was very simple. You went to the pay scale, you found where you were on the pay scale by years, you went across your degree, boom, there was your salary. With Act 1, it's not that way. It is, it is your experience, but it is the demand component too, and the effectiveness component. So we have to think about all those things when we're doing it. So tonight I bring to you an MOU that we've been working on for the last few months, and a lot of structure that as a board and our officers and the staff, we've been working on what we could do and how we could make some things work. So I bring to you tonight, as you can see by the MOU, it's I think you have a printed copy. It should be on your board docs, and I have it on the presentation there for you to take a look at. But what we're asking, or what we're offering through our MOU we signed with the Federation, is to say we are for our certificated personnel, a permanent pay raise of $2,550. To all of our support personnel, a permanent pay raise of $1,750, which basically equates to 5 steps. Basically is 5 steps for all groups of employees, which is a tremendous add. It is a definite win-win for everyone. We get out of the stipend business, as we'll go through in just a second, primarily as much as possible, get out the stipend business and move over to a permanent pay raise for our employees. So what does that look like? You can kind of see it there. There's some things that Mr. Osborne and I and the administration, we talked about, and some things that we did. You can take a look at it. We had a critical shortage stipend. We had targeted schools. We had some things with SWE, with our SWE staff, trying to gather employees and grow areas we needed to grow. Unfortunately, those things did not result in true impact. We felt like the best way to truly impact our staff was to provide permanent pay raises. So we did away with our critical subject area. We did away with targeted schools. If you are on an OFAT currently working towards gifted, and you can see on the MOU, those teachers that are on an OFAT working toward that SWE certification or that critical subject area certification, because it's a 3-year process, if they already started prior to April 30th, then they are grandfathered in to see that through. We wanted to make sure we saw those people through, that it committed to a job and committed to a position. So we're going to work with those handful of people through 28 to get them complete and to see that through. But no one after April 30th is going to be able to get into that program and see the change in the stipends added to that or the steps moving forward. I'm sorry, I jumped one. As I told you, as part of the rollout, experience, that's very self-explanatory. You move $500 on a step. If you're certificated, you move $350 if you're support. The experience is pretty set, clear. The problem is you have to look at demand. Demand are those components that could be not more than 50% more than the others. And we have to make sure that in demand components, we're looking at things that the school system needs. What benefits the school system? What benefits our employees? Part of the demand stipend is we pay for advanced degrees. Those people that get advanced degrees at whatever area they work in, if they got an advanced degree, they get compensated for that. That's part of the demand stipend, the demand component. You'll also see on there the Chromebooks. Chromebooks are a burden on all of our schools, no matter what level you are, K through 12. Lewis and his staff do a great job of supporting with our paratechs, but because we can't provide paratechs to the level we do at high school with the numbers we do, our paratechs in K through 8 visit their schools once a week, whereas our high schools have a paratech every day. But what we're looking to do is, it's not just collection and distribution, it's the support of those students on the campus. So paying $550 a semester for those people that handle Chromebooks, that could be one person on the campus, that could be multiple people on the campus. But $550 is a stipend they would have to split by whoever has that role on the campus. So again, if it's one person that their primary duty is they handle up on Chromebooks, then the principal would delegate that to one person. If not, it would be split between multiple people there. So that falls in the demand component. So this, like I explained, it's very intricate. And when we're sitting down talking with the Federation, we have to be very clear, and Terry's very clear on what we need to fulfill the demand component and the effectiveness component, because again, you'll see that in just a second. So we've talked about the overall raise, we've talked about Chromebooks, we've talked about the things that we've pulled back on and giving to the employees in permanent pay raises, so they don't have to worry about and rely on stipends. We've talked about the SWE people and the critical subject people that already started, they're good to go. We talked about that process, and it'll go to a 28. The next part is the effectiveness part. I would love to say we do away with effectiveness. I wish I had that ability as a superintendent. I do not have the ability to do that. It has to be part of your pay structure. I'm going to just tell you, we have some administrators here, they will tell you that component, the component of the effectiveness of a staff member on a campus, when you're having to judge them currently by compass will be the educational rubric moving forward, that becomes such a contentious process. And it's not because you can't sit down and evaluate and work with and grow educators. It's because it was tied to a pot of money. And with pay of educators being what it is, and we all got in this business knowing what it is, it was very important that we tried to minimize that burden as much as possible on the employee, and on the administrator doing it. So we've tried to lessen that burden to make it less of the anxious moment for those employees and our administrators, and give it to the employees in a permanent pay raise as part of the permanent pay raise, but still be able to reward a small dollar amount to help out those people. So you'll see it on there. And y'all see it about VAM all the time. VAM, value added model. That is where the state basically says, okay, let's look at the kids that were in so-and-so's classroom. Let's compare those kids to those same type of kids, whether it be educational level, poverty level, whatever it is in that matrix, and let's compare them. And we're going to assign that teacher a score. So the principal has no say-so in that. The teacher has no direct say-so because all they can do is try to grow their kids. It's how their kids performed against the other kids in the state of Louisiana that are similar to the kids they teach. We had a teacher that went all the way to the LDOE trying to get clarification on that, and we still don't understand what they said. So that's where we are. But the thing about VAM is the principal has nothing to do with it. So we have to, what we're doing is trying to reward those people and monetize somewhat of a score that they have no control over directly no control over. And the principal has no control. The score is delineated by the state. So if they're a 3.5 or higher, their VAM score is a 3.5 or higher, it would be a $500 stipend at the appropriate time. If they're a 3.00 to a 3.49999, then they would qualify for a $250 stipend. Again, we're trying to lessen the burden on those. We had to also tie in our non-VAM, which are people that are not considered, they're not value added. Majority of those people are our elective and support teachers, or the majority of those, or they're in non-tested grades. So that their evaluation does involve the principal. There's no other way. They don't have a VAM score, and it can't just be on SLTs. So it is their complete evaluation score as determined by SLTs and the observation by the principal. So if those people that are non-VAM or 3.5 or higher, their stipend would be $250. We were trying to make it adequate. A VAM teacher, again, has no direct control over that score or any part of the process. So we felt like that was a really fair compromise to move forward and to do that. So I hope I explained that VAM part, and that is part of the effectiveness part of the salary schedule that Terry can go into further detail if we need to a little later on. We are keeping the advanced degrees. That stays the same. Nothing changes there. And our salary reserve fund stays the same. I'm going to turn it over to Steve real quick. Steve's going to talk about our set of employees that are national board certified, and maybe Terry could jump into on the impact that having people in those spots will benefit the district, along with helping us to recruit some employees. Steve?
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Green and Board, and Superintendent Jabia. What you're looking at is the other requested pay changes. This is, when we discussed this in negotiations, it's a retention tool, and it's also a recruiting tool. If you really dig into these are individuals that can make a lot of money elsewhere, so, and also they are individuals who have a type of licensure, whether it be from the state medical board or, like a licensed professional counselor, a licensed clinical social worker, that they have to do yearly with continuing education credit to keep that license. And that license, basically, they have to have that license to get certified with this LDOE to practice. And some of that is we can recoup the money with Medicaid, and Terry can jump into that in a second. So we thought, through negotiations, that one, it would help us retain people. Two, we can adequately compensate these people who have a type of medical background, and we can it'll help us maybe recruit some. So, so we recommended just appropriate reclassifying them, all those who have those type of licensure, and it will help us. We're not quite there, but it will help us retain and recruit.
So that will address our, our social workers, our licensed professional counselors. It'll also, we're talking about our speech therapists, our psychologists, our occupational therapists, our physical therapists. So again, those are people that have a professional license that is national board certified. And again, for those people and maybe Terry could jump in, we will be able to bill Medicaid. Terry, if you could kind of talk about that real quick with
Yeah,
those people.
we currently bill Medicaid for speech therapists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists, and psychologists, he misspoke, they're not covered under this. It's just those three groups on the therapists. They're already, yeah, it's okay. The Medicaid, that we collect on those, we get a percentage of their salaries back from Medicaid, and we can also direct bill them. So they are required to have licenses. So that's been a big demand for us trying to get people in those groups because they are highly paid in the private sector. So it's tough to get those people. So this is something I have requested for a long time to get them a little bit more pay so that we can recruit those people. As far as the social workers and the counselors, the ones that are licensed are the ones we can bill for Medicaid. And so the goal is to get more people to seek the license or to hire more people with license so we get more Medicaid funding. And again, their master's programs are longer than the normal 48-hour one that teachers have to do. So we're adding a little more pay to them, a plus 30, because they have a 60-hour program. So it's twofold with that, just to get more qualified people that are licensed and to be able to do more Medicaid funding for those two groups of employees.
Thank y'all very much. I apologize. I meant to say pathologist, not psychologist. I apologize for that. The next group, part of the MOU, as a former coach, this is near and dear to my heart, of course. And nobody wanted and tried to win more than I did, and it about killed me. That's why I started taking blood pressure medication at 35 years old, because nobody wanted to win more than I did. Our coaches are paid on a percentage of their salary. And I know that a lot of the coaches wanted us to up those percentages, but that is a very slippery slope to go down. Every time there's a pay raise, whether it be significant or not, if you get paid on a percentage, just for instance, just say 10%, if a coach makes 10% for a certain coach sport they coach, then in this pay raise, they would get a $250 raise on top of what everyone else got because their percentage for coaching is part of their salary. So it goes up a little bit. I know that's not significant, but it is something. But we want to do something a little bit more to kind of like incentivize our coaches to one of the biggest issues or one of the biggest complaints we get is if I make the playoffs as a coach and X school does not make the playoffs, then the pay for those coaches is the same because it is spread out. Your stipend is spread out. Your percentage is spread out over the course of the entire year. But they say they're still, and I get it, they're still practicing. I'm still practicing and so is not. So we wanted to do something to incentivize that, to incentivize making the playoffs. So we looked at all of our LHSAA sports, and if there is a playoff, and the team qualifies, the head coach would get a $500 stipend, and every assistant would get $250. If you finish first or second, or if you make the championship game, you get extra rewards. If you finish second or runner-up, if they have an actual championship game, or if they just tally score and your team finishes second, then the head coach would get an extra $500, and every assistant on that staff would get an extra $250. If you won the state championship, which Slaughter High and volleyball won it this year, the head coach would get a $1,000 stipend, and the assistants would all get $500. So we want to do something to incentivize our coaches for coaching the playoffs, and we understand their concerns. Look, as a former coach, Saturdays and Sundays were mandatory for me. It is what it is. And so that's just the way it was. And we did it no matter what. And my pay in 1994, like I told you, was $24,495. So that percentage was way less than it is currently right now. But I understand the cost of living and what everything costs and what we're doing right now is a big difference. But we try to look out for our coaches and give them something added to. The next few things that I have on the list, y'all, are things primarily that are going to be added to the supplemental pay scale, but we brought them to negotiation so that when Terry brings the supplemental pay scale to you guys next month for approval, they're already on there. They've been vetted through our negotiations process, and they're not just put on there as a supplemental pay. So if you can see on there, we have a science lab facilitators. All we're asking for is if that person is there and available, they would make $30 an hour to be able to work that position. Through C&I, we have teachers that give up their time to help us with activities as part of our curriculum and for assessment writing. So we want to make sure that that's clearly defined what their pay is at $30 an hour. Our virtual teachers for our junior high and high school kids, you can see it on there, our June and July sessions. We wanted to be very clear on what the hourly rate would be for them. So all this is just clearly defining what that's going to be, moving to the supplemental pay scale. I know there's a lot of questions on number 5. If we can just get through this, and then I can answer some questions and we can discuss that as a group. But it is for all of our certified staff, that 90 minutes a week of duty be accepted, and every 60 minutes over that 90, our employees would be reimbursed or paid $15 per hour to be able to do that. That will be done through a timesheet on our school campuses. And again, I know some of you have some questions, so we'll discuss that in a few minutes if you don't mind. Terry, do you want to talk about the Health and Welfare Fund briefly?
I requested this clause. As you know, I'm on the Board of Trustees of the Health and Welfare Plan with the Federation now. And I thought we needed, before we set the health and welfare contribution, that we really need to get their financial statements for the year and for their audit for the prior year. And twofold reasons, just to make sure that $500,000 that they're requesting is needed, or if they may possibly need more. Just to evaluate that. So I'm requesting that we renegotiate that between July 15th and July 31st with a deadline of July 31st, and determine the amount that we agree to pay on that health and welfare. So we'd bring that back to you once that is done. It would be in the budget, so that would be your time to approve it, but we can't bring it back on an agenda item.
Thank you, Terry. The next one, y'all, is on the bargaining units. And, Mr. Osborne brought to our attention that he had members in the actual federation that were considered coordinators. By LDOE BESI policy, if you have the title of coordinator, you're considered in a management status. Our job descriptions didn't necessarily look like that, but it was very important that, in the LDOE's eyes and Bessie's eyes, if that's considered that, we didn't want that to be a catch, something where we had people that should have been somewhere, shouldn't have been somewhere. So I believe it was 5 or 6 people. Steve has already contacted those people. Mr. Osborne's already worked with those people. This has already been dealt with, but we agreed to that in negotiations. So I wanted to make sure we put it on there. And those people have been removed from the Federation because they can't hold that distinction any longer. Next is a few changes to actual verbiage in the CBA. And some of these are, the first one is about negotiations. It just has to be later. It has to be later than earlier. There are things that happen. There's situations that go on. Our expenses, our budgets need to be closer to where Terry can get a handle on exactly what's there. So all we're saying is we've got to push that window back. And that's all that we're agreeing to push the window back for negotiation. So that was the first one. The next one is really talking about our employees, food service, that we changed the verbiage so that they can wear solid white or solid black shirts with their solid pants or their skirt. So we just changed that delineation. That was a very simple change. We felt like Casey was great with it, so we were ready to move forward with that one. The next is duty, and lunch duty is with the guaranteeing of a duty-free lunch. becomes an issue. Someone's got to watch the children. We're going to do a better job of trying to find monitors in those cafeterias so we can give more teachers that time off. We're going to look at utilizing our bus drivers, our owner operators, and our operators, and also trying to recruit more parents or PTA or members, and those that is already included on the supplemental pay schedule to reimburse those people and pay those people those figures. So we want to do everything in our power to lessen the burden of lunch and give our teachers, our faculty and staff that time off for lunch. So we really wanted to make sure we hammer that home. But as you'll see on all these, we had some confusion on field trips. If you're on a field trip, and so working with Mr. Osborne and the Federation, we were able to delineate that these things do not apply if you're on a field trip. And if there's any questions, we're going to work together as a group to work through anything that could be a sticking point in any of those situations. But we felt like it was very clear that we needed to delineate people that are on a field trip, that these suggestions do not, or these members, parts of the CBA don't apply. Also, so majority of those are about lunchtime and giving those people that if people that say, I'll take lunch duty, that we work with them to minimize any other duties or take away other duties they might have. So we're trying to think outside the box. This year with Act 311, we were in a pickle. We were in a pickle because the law used to state if you had a CBA, you were exempt from the planning time minutes. And we always tried to maximize those to the greatest ability possible without adding staff. But when that law passed this summer, and it enacted immediately this summer, we had to think outside the box. So the C&I team worked really hard with principals to try to find a way to get planning time, build planning time in, pull people off of recess, pull people off of different duties to try to give that 45 minutes of planning time guaranteed, that 225 a week. But that was a serious burden for us. Luckily, we were able to address that moving forward. So next year, C&I has worked very strongly. Ms. Jenkins worked really strongly to make sure that we'll have no issues with the dedicated 45 minutes of planning time. But working through lunch is a sticking point. That is a sticking point for a lot of people because we have to provide that duty-free lunch, or we've got to work that duty-free lunch into their off time. So these items are just saying that we're going to do everything in our power to make that happen. Everybody should be given that type of duty and that type of relief from duty that we can provide, with also granting them as much planning time as we can possibly do that. And I want to thank Ms. Jenkins and C&I for doing everything they can to make sure that we had the proper planning time for especially K-6 moving forward. But again, you'll see those on there, y'all, that talks about planning time and what we have going on. So I'm going to let Mr. Osborne come up and speak, and then we'll try to address any questions or any clarification that you might need as a board.
Good evening, Board President Green. I get it right this time. Board members, I think Frank knocked it out of the park there, but certainly I'm here for any questions. I did want to say it was a true pleasure to sit down with the other team along with my team. Everybody worked constructively. Frank said it best, we wanted to get out of the stipend business, and we wanted something permanent for employees. We're all facing it, cost of living. So telling every employee, hey, you're all getting this same raise. It doesn't depend on this or that. We value everybody. So that was a big point, and I think we achieved that. So again, I'm here for questions if you need any clarification from the Federation's point of view. But again, solid effort on the part of everybody to do something special for employees. I'm appreciative of Frank and his team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jabby, and thank you, Mr. Osborne. I know there was a lot of work that went into this, obviously, because there's a lot to digest here. Before we move into discussion and questions, let's kind of follow some sort of parliamentary procedure and get a motion to accept the MOU. Ms. Hurstius has a motion to accept the MOU. Do I have a second? Ms. Hanson has that second, so I'll open it up for any public comment on the MOU. Yes.
Stephanie Underwood, Executive Vice President of the Federation. I'm asking you to please pass this today. A lot of work did go into it. Not everybody will be 100% happy, but I feel like we've tried and touched as many different employees as we could, especially with the main pay raise. So I do encourage you to vote yes on this MOU, and I'm asking you to vote yes on this MOU. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? And I'll open up the queue now for board member. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Nicole Sadlowski, and I'm both a parent and a teacher in St. Tammany. As a parent, I want to state that my oldest attends Mandeville Elementary, and my youngest will start there next year. I consider it to be the best elementary school in this parish, and what makes it the best elementary school are those teachers. Those teachers not only deserve every bit of a raise that they're going to get in this MOU, but thousands of dollars more. We know that elementary school teachers are the foundation of a child's education, and those teachers are absolutely phenomenal. My son comes home every day talking about how much he loves school and what he learned that day. And I know that his love of school is because of his amazing teachers who go above and beyond. They deserve a salary that goes above and beyond. I also want to give a shout out to the strings teacher, Miss Burris, who deserves $1 million because I cannot imagine teaching elementary school teachers how to play a violin, and she does a phenomenal job. Because of that and her dedication, she deserves this raise in the MOU. Now, as a teacher, I want to state that I've worked in this parish for 12 years. I've earned a master's degree, and I'm still not bringing home $60,000 a year. That, to me, is absolutely crazy. As teachers, we deserve every dollar in this MOU. I work with some of the best teachers who bust their butt every day to do what is right for our students and what is right for our school. We are not even in the top 10 of the highest paid parishes anymore, and that is unacceptable. Every single one of my colleagues at the school that I work at and other schools around this parish deserve every dollar of the raise in the MOU and thousands of dollars more. I hope you'll vote yes tonight and continue to advocate to give teachers in this parish the money and the raises that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? No, I see people queued up here. Ms. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Green. I'd first like to thank this team and Mr. Jabbia for sucking blood out of a turnip and finding this. And I understand that it is, we've lowered some of our numbers of employment through attrition, and we were able to come up with some money. But I do agree with this CBA in every aspect except for the 90 minutes of duty. And that's really my only thing. But I do have a couple of questions before I get that. The Health and Welfare Fund, Ms. Prevost. So
Yes.
we pay for that, but it goes through the union, but
We
the
pay,
union offers it, but we pay for it?
it's a separate, it's a trust fund basically that's set up that is been managed previously by the Federation. They had a board of trustees. Now I'm on the board of trustees. We've made annual contributions to that fund for as long as I can remember, except for this past year, because we utilized their fund balance. They allowed us not to make a contribution. So we contribute, and also the employees contribute that have family plans and spouses, and if they have a higher level plan, but the basic coverage in it is free for all employees. So we are basically funding that.
So is it a benefit offered to all employees by us or by the union or in just from our own?
Well, it's offered through the Federation basically and managed by this trust fund. Because it's public funds, it has to be a fund that's audited and reported to legislative auditor. So it's a trust fund that was set up. It's a voluntary employee benefit association plan that was established, I guess, at some point when the Federation was created years ago. I'm not sure when it was founded, but 93, yeah. So it's been around a long time.
Okay,
Yeah, and all employees are covered now with basic dental.
okay. Well, I mean, I think y'all, all right, other than that, I think you all did an absolute amazing job. I want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with me and Deborah and try to explain this to me over and over and over. You included Mr. Harrison. One of the things that bothers me is this duty business. And I think last year we talked about it. Now, I do understand it is part of the law. And I think the spirit of the law is good, because there's no one, to your point, that doesn't want to try to grab every dollar you can possibly grab for a teacher because it's well-deserved. The problem is, as it was last year, is our elementary schools. So I had asked my principal, Ms. Hickman, to join us today. She had another commitment with her children, but she made this spreadsheet for me, and I've passed it to you, about what is the cost to the district? And are we really getting to the point where we're going to pay people by the minute up to an hour? And I don't, my first problem is I can't, when you're on duty as an elementary person, and let's say you're in car line duty, and it's 10 teachers on duty for one of the big schools. And as kids get picked up and brought home, that number decreases, so you don't need 10 teachers. I can't imagine the nightmare of a principal saying, you dropped off early 5 minutes and you stayed 2. That is, I think, unrealistic for someone to decide who leaves duty early, because of course there's less kids that have to be picked up, and then who stays, and then who's keeping track of the minutes, and then the principals and the stress of making sure those timesheets are correct, would, to me, be a logistical nightmare. I just know that we have 2 principals here, if they would like to say something about that. So, having said all that, the 90 minutes, as I understand, is the law, but Mr. Harrison, they're saying it's not the law. Is it the law? The 90 minutes minimum? No, I know the planning time is.
So the planning time is 17:434, and the duty time is 17:418.
And it's in there that if you do duty over 90 minutes, we have to pay you?
No.
No.
It's a complexity in the law that it has to balance the job duties of a particular class of employees. And first of all, on that issue, you have to be a certified employee. And then if you're working over mandatorily on certain duties, then the law requires a payment. And it gets complicated when you go to implement it. That's just as quick as I can say that.
Okay, so in a teacher's job, and look, we got to find a way to pay people however we need to pay them. But in a teacher's job description, it does include duties. It does say that you're going to do duties. Now, some people are over 210 minutes beyond the 90 to equal 300. Some people 85, 170. That's per person, up to, and again, this is Ms. Hickman's work, $1,145,000. Now, what I think is not probably correct about this, that I learned later today, is what you just said, that it's only for certified. So if there are paras or other people doing the duty, then they wouldn't get the $15, right? Okay, so this number, depending on how a person's duty schedule looks, would probably be inflated. So having said that, it's still a whole lot of money. and I think it's a logistical nightmare to keep track of that, especially in the morning and in the afternoon, when your job description says that duty is part of your job. So, look, I don't know the answer, but I do know that we can't nickel and dime the system like this. We can't say, and I am grateful about getting rid of the stipends, while I am a person that believes in merit pay in a school system, and I get the longevity pay. But I would ask that, because everything else makes sense to me in this MOU, if you and Mr. Osborne could maybe go back to the table and say, who is going to be responsible for this? Where, we can't pay over $1 million in minutes for duty when it's part of your job anyway. Because teaching, while it's both an art and a science, I mean, you got to have a heart for it. So you're certainly not taking on this profession, number one, to get rich, which is far from it. But also, I mean, we all went to school and we all had teachers on duty when we were at recess. So we do know that that is part of the job. And I'm not saying don't pay anything. I'm just saying that what is the rule? Who's turning in timesheets and how frequently are they going to take? Like it seems to me to be a logistical nightmare to the tune of over $1 million. And I don't think that's very doable. So I would ask that the CBA is great, and I would like to know if y'all could maybe go back to the table and clear up the muddy water on the 90 minutes. That's my ask. No. It's over the year. So it's our.
Hang on, guys. So,
I was going to respond to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to explain. So when we negotiate what it is in regulations and procedures and stuff. We kind of leave up to administration, right? Mm-hmm. So that is one thing that we can definitely talk about, but that's usually not in a negotiation, like how things are done and when it's done.
I got you.
Okay. The other thing is you did mention about the minutes. So every teacher in this district is paid for a 7-hour employee. Okay, every teacher. They're 7-hour employees. But we have elementary teachers that are working an hour and 10 minutes of duty a day. So they're working over, 350 minutes at Brock. That was on that paper. 350 minutes at Brock for a week. Mm-hmm. That's 70 minutes a day. And so somebody's working in 8 hours and 10 minutes a day and getting paid to be a 7-hour employee, while a 7-hour employee maybe, because there's schools that is less than 90 minutes of duty. So some teachers will work 7 hours in a day and that's it, while others are always working over 8 hours. And they're paid for 7-hour days. Yes, they're overtime exempt, but it's not equitable to have somebody work over 8 hours a day every day and get the same amount of money as somebody at a high school that only works 7 hours. They all put in a lot of work, because planning, all that extra stuff outside, I'm not saying they don't do extra work, but looking at what they're assigned to do at their building, we have to do something for these people.
And I agree with you 100% that it is, the problem is in the elementary schools, right? So, so there is without a doubt, and part of that is the laws that's changed to the supervision rate. But I would still suggest, like, I don't understand, like, Brock's not a big school. It's not my school, but I mean, it's a small school.
Pre-K, so all the pre-K needs a little extra. So they're always on duty, so they're working a whole lot more than some other employees.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am grateful but they're all found a way. Is that right, Mr. Alfonso? They found a way. Everybody's getting their 45 minutes, and if they're not, they're going to be compensated for it, and that's the end of that story. Okay, so that's a fixed thing from last year. but I don't know that although I hear what you're saying, Steph, like I get that it is supposed to be a 7-hour day by the time you kick on, but that doesn't make sense to me that, I mean, again, if an elementary principal wants to jump in, feel free. But I mean, if you're supposed to not have more than 90 minutes and you have 350 per person, then your cost, additional cost to the district per week is $16.25, assuming that all those duty positions are certified. So, and the total cost to the year is another $58.5. Plus your benefits, you're looking at a grand total of $76,000 for Brock Elementary just for duty, when it is on your job description. That's just one school. So I'm not saying I have the answer. I don't have the answer. And I hear what you're saying, that people have to be compensated, but there's got to be a better way, and I don't know what that way is, and I'm not assigned to do it that way. And I would plead with you to go back to the table on that one section. So I would like to believe that we could vote on everything but that, just to get the budget going, but over $1 million for doing duty when it's part of your job. Anyway, aside for that.
I will also mention Tangi does 90 minutes an hourly rate over that. So they pay hourly rates. So we're not even.
How is that different? I don't know what you're saying.
We only, 15.
We're doing $15 an hour. They do their hourly rate. So they pay more per hour for any duty minutes over 90 minutes.
Yeah, well,
I just
that
wanted
would
to
bust
put that-
us. That would bust us.
Exactly.
I mean, there'd be no
Exactly.
way. I mean, we could promise the sun, moon, and stars, but we couldn't deliver on that.
Exactly, which
Baker,
is why it's a
are you
negotiation.
finished?
Yeah, I am finished. I just would like
But Ms. Baker, yeah, so as you've talked about it, there is a distinct difference between K-6 and 712. Distinct difference when supervising those campuses. And yes, it would be the employee's job or obligation to turn in a correct timesheet for the month, but the principal has to validate every one of those timesheets to make sure. And as you said, it's much clearer look, as a high school person, that is very similar to a junior high campus as far as like, duties are set because the kids are older. We don't have to load them in a car like we do have to do at the younger, lower elementary. But tracking that is going to be a nightmare for those administrators. It is, that it will. Just because, just as you stated, as people roll off of a duty spot as you don't need them, someone's going to have to keep up with that. I don't know how we're going to do that part. I really don't. But equity has been an issue with duty, but it's always an issue with lower elementary as opposed to junior high school. It's a huge difference. So
That's my ask, and I don't know how the rest of y'all feel, but that's my
understand.
ask, and we'll revisit before we vote.
Okay, Ms. Moore?
This is just for clarification. It's at the very end. It's in the section where it says added wording to teachers and other certified employees. Section Article 6, Section 613. Lunch period as follows. It says, number 7, any employee who is required to forfeit their duty-free lunch to supervise students or who does not have a duty-free lunch built into their schedule shall be compensated at their hourly rate of pay.
Right.
So it's not a little fixed amount again. That's,
that has to be given to them. It has to be given to them. So we've got to, like I said, we've got to either give them a duty-free lunch or provide time in their schedule where they can eat lunch that accommodates that time. So that's our obligation to make sure that happens. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And the supervisors are actually going there next week to see how we can be more efficient with duty and the numbers that were provided to us. And they've been working. That's what Ms. Jenkins and her entire team's been doing, is getting to those schools. That's why we were able to create to ensure they got their planning time and do what we need to do. That's what we've done. and that will continue. That will continue.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Dr. Peterson?
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank the superintendent and the teachers union for their part and these recommended changes. And it's obviously a lot of thought is going into this and a very meticulous process, obviously. But we'll probably, no matter what we do, we'll probably never be able to satisfactorily pay people for the value of the work they do because they're dealing with children of other people, and that's invaluable. So I just want to, and that's what education has that's always been the mantra. You're doing this important job for the value that our community appreciates it for guarding their children and educating their children. That's the future of our country. And so with that said, the most important thing here is that we get our salaries up. That's my focus on the whole thing, what I'm saying. And that's for our teachers, so we can attract great teachers and so that we can retain the good teachers in that process. And so that's goal number one. I think you're meeting that goal by taking a large step here. And I want to reiterate that the recent bond issue, and I just want to make sure emphasize this because it's so important, because we almost missed the opportunity that we're voting on tonight. Had we not had the support of our community, and I won't count the numbers because I really don't care what they are. The fact is, it was voted in by our community and by the efforts of some people here, especially our superintendent. Had this not happened, we wouldn't be talking about money that can now be reallocated to teacher salaries. This money would have been securely bound to improvements on buildings and whatever we had mandatorily. So we are blessed because our community stepped up and made sure that this happened. And I'm just, I want to emphasize that because I just think, sometimes we just, it's done and we move on to the next thing. Well, this is the next thing, but it wouldn't have happened had it not been for the support in this community and by our teachers and by our employees who understood the fact that this allows us to be here tonight and put teacher raises before you. And so I'm very thankful for that, and our superintendent especially, for his hard work and that effort, and his staff. And, well, I just wanted to say that, because that's just, I think, it's like that's the crux of what we're really doing here. We're able to do this because monies were reallocated from not having to be dedicated to other projects. Thank you to the public and to our superintendent. Thank you.
Totally agree, Dr. Peterson. Our public is very generous with the support of the school system overall. Overall, very supportive of the school system.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Ms. Fauntleroy?
Thank you, Mr. Green. I too want to thank our community. That I don't think everyone realized that had we not freed that money up to keep our facilities up through the bond issue, we wouldn't have this money available. And I'm very excited that we're able to offer this. Thank you, Mr. Osborne and Mr. Jabbia, for working on this. Overall, I think it's a very good plan. I have just one little hiccup. I'm going to ask my easy question first. National board certification for teachers. I know my sister did that years ago, and I remember a couple years ago we recognized our. Yeah, I know we recognize them, but they used to get some sort of pay every 5 years or something. How does?
$10,000 a year for 5 years, right?
How does that
They
work?
get the state put, if you got it prior to 2013, you remain getting $5,000 a year. Anyone who got national boards after 2013, systems are not obligated to compensate them.
Okay, and so that is not addressed in here anyway?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not teachers, no, ma'am.
Okay. Does our system outside of the MOU have anything in place for national board certification?
Yeah, like I said, we pay, are you talking about people after 2013? We do not compensate them, no, ma'am.
Okay,
By law, we don't have to, but we grandfather the others in.
okay. All right, I just want a clarification on that. I share the concern that Ms. Baker has for some of the same reasons. I'm just afraid this is a slippery slope. I support the idea of our supervisors getting in the school and helping in the areas that we do have trouble. Because, and I agree, Ms. Underwood, if they're working those extra hours, they need to be compensated for it. But first, we need to make sure there's not a scheduling problem, and then we need to address it as individual school problems. I don't know that we, I don't know that we need a district-wide plan for this, but my concerns are, like, where does it stop? Like she said, are we going to pay teachers for every little minute and every little thing? My other issue is it doesn't cover non-cert, and they do duty as well. And I know that's outside of our control, but their time's just as valuable. But I mean, every job has perks and pitfalls, pros and cons. You know, your first grader teacher, they have to tie shoes. Your sixth grade teacher, they don't have to tie kids' shoes. That Monday and Friday duty, they're terrible duties, but you have less Monday and Fridays in a year. There's ups and downs to everything. And so if we start trying to, you know, we're going to pay our bus drivers that smile and get to know their kids more than our bus drivers who just drive? Are we going to pay our cafeteria ladies that get involved in the school more than the ones that just throw the food on the plate? I don't know where we draw the line. I think there are better ways to be fair than to put it in an MOU. I think it's something we could work out at every site. One of my schools has this issue. They are at 100 minutes. Equitable, every teacher, every person on the campus has 100 minutes. So are we going to do a timesheet for every employee once every 6 weeks for $15? I mean, the time that goes into processing those the paperwork, it just seems like a waste of our taxpayers' money to pay people to process $15 timesheets. I think we need to solve it, but I just don't know that this is the way. I just think it's burdensome, and we could come up with a better way. You know, hang on, I had notes all over the place. I'm trying to make sure I addressed everything. I do know Ms. Baker had asked about this. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to put you on the spot, sorry. She had asked about the one thing. If there's just the one thing that we have a hiccup with, is that something we can deal with here today? Or like, can it be amended or as a board and voted on, or does it have to go back to the table?
So very briefly, the power of the board to approve or to modify this proposal is something that the board has in its power. You know, at the end of the day, if you follow parliamentary rules on it, make a motion however you deem appropriate, get a second and vote on it, then the superintendent and Mr. Osborne would have to deal to it. Because in the end of this analysis, the board has control over the budget. That's just how it works.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm understanding. So just as a hypothetical, if we remove that one thing, voted on it, and it by some chance passed, then it would go back to them and they could agree or not and send it back? I just don't want, I think it's a great plan, and it's got 200 great things in it, and one little hiccup, I don't want us to not walk away from here with a plan. And I'm not making that motion, I'm just asking because it was brought up.
I can't always predict the consequences. You asked me about the power to do
Okay.
something. I can't
All right.
predict what that would do and what it would do in negotiations with a union who's in a collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
I mean, this has been the culmination of your chief negotiator and the chief negotiator for the union,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So
And I
if
mean,
you want to undo that
and
as a
it may
board,
only be Ms.
then-
Baker and I that see that problem, so it might not even be an issue.
I think the issue is that this is a signed MOU, so if you alter this, then Mr. Osborne's gonna have to agree to that alteration for you
Okay.
then to approve this, because this is a complete MOU signed by the two of us.
Okay.
I think everybody hears the concerns of the two people that have spoken on already, so,
Right.
sure.
Yes, Ms. Fauntleroy and also Ms. Baker. I would prefer, I mean, to me, you would just keep it simple, and somebody would substitute motion to table it and send Superintendent Jabbia back to the table with us, knowing the concerns, we would try to work it out. I prefer you don't do that, just because so many employees are, wanting this to happen. And the duty piece was one that a lot of elementary teachers are excited about. Superintendent Jabbia and I will always revisit supplementals. So we can check in our labor management committee in December and say, hey, how's this going? Or January, hey, how's this going? Is it working? We don't necessarily have to wait till a financial reopener to modify. We could modify it if we decide it's a disaster. But we ultimately will sit down again next spring. But we do hear the concerns. We got this idea from Tangi. They do this at hourly rate, as Stephanie said. I asked them last year, how much did they spend? And they said they started in November of 2023, and they only spent $79,000. So I'm not sure how accurate the costing out is. I don't think Ms. Prevost was part of that costing out, so I'm a little leery of it because she hasn't had a chance to really get into the numbers. I know supervisors can go in there and maybe make duty schedules that are still safe, but also mainstream. There might be some issues we're not aware of. So we definitely want to save the system money. And I hear what you're saying, Ms. Fauntleroy, but I know it creates bitterness. If somebody at this school, elementary school, has duty 5 days a week, 60 minutes a day, and another elementary school only has 100 minutes, they feel that. So this is just a gesture. We're not doing hourly rate. We know that would be too expensive. We felt 15 was in the ballpark of what would be meaningful for our teachers, our elementary teachers. We just feel like they get the short end of the stick a lot.
What about the non-cert? Why were they left out?
They're not overtime exempt.
They're gonna get paid overtime if they work over 7 hours.
Yeah, they're not.
They get their
overtime
rate times time and a half. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so that,
So
And
that
Act
doesn't
three,
even-
Act 311 was very specific, and that's kind of where this generated from, was duties and assignments above and beyond the normal workday in Act 311. So, and that pertained to teacher, that whole law was about teachers and certificated personnel.
Well, I would just ask that we look into minimizing the logistical nightmare that timesheets are. Ms. Prevost, did you have a chance to do any numbers? Or anything?
I looked at the sheet, the calculations look now, I mean, I think most everyone's question is the number of teachers that are listed, is that accurate or is that inflated? I will tell you, planning time, I was told it was gonna be $400,000. It was like, it's gonna be more like 250. So probably it's the high estimate, the numbers on that sheet, but yeah, the number of teachers that you're applying to, that one I can't give you, but the calculation itself was correct.
Okay.
So,
The issue is duty schedules are so specific to that campus, as
Right,
you know, as
right.
anybody who did administration knows. And the administrators are charged with setting up a duty schedule and where the positions will be before lunch, after school, and then the duty committee sits down and takes everybody applicable and requests and says, okay, this is trying to meet everyone's requests, say what works and how can we cover all these spots. But as Ms. Baker said, the issue is, in elementary, it's just so different because they have to load every one of those kids into those cars. If they all got on a bus, we could roll, but that's just not reality.
No, I know.
And so, as Ms. Baker said, people are gonna roll off. So it's tracking that it's just very difficult.
Right, that's my concern.
With planning time, it's very simple. I didn't get my 45 minutes. We can verify, okay, the teacher missed 20 minutes this week, or they missed 30 minutes this week, or whatever the case might be.
Let me ask you, the burden is gonna be on the teacher to submit the timesheet, or is the burden gonna be on the administrator to keep up with the
The burden's
timesheets?
on the teacher to submit the timesheet, but the administrator has to verify.
Right,
the
because
timesheet.
if the teacher took off one day that month, then they didn't do their duty that day. I mean, that's just gonna be so much work.
Or they were out at a training, or whatever the
Right.
case might be, in a sub had it. It's just-
That's my concern, that this is just creating a logistical nightmare for secretaries, for Ms. Prevost's office doing timesheets. It's just, I like the idea of compensating them. I'm just hoping we can brainstorm some better ways. So,
I'll reach out to Tangi. They're a year and a half ahead of us as far as that, or 2 years ahead of us. They probably have developed some best practices we can steal.
Ms. Fauntleroy, are you done? Okay. Ms. Hanson?
Thank you. Again, I'm glad I'm going to reiterate what some of y'all have said. I'm glad we're in the position where we can have discussions about salary pay raises, because our discussions in April looked like we were going to have some concerns with it, whether or not everyone was going to go out there and support the bond reauthorization. So again, thank you, Mr. Jabbia, for your support on that and our community. I second this motion because I think it's imperative that we provide our employees with salaries. It's way beyond time. So I seconded it. It's not to say that I agree 100% with everything that's written here. I think that there are some issues in here that, as others have said, are going to be a slippery slope. I think there's issues in here that it's going to be problematic as far as from a logistic standpoint and pay and, but I do overall believe that the document in whole is good. You've answered some of my questions. I was wondering why we took away the stipends for the vacancies in SWE and targeted schools and that kind of stuff. If it wasn't doing what it was intended to do, let's go ahead and see if we can give it to all of our teachers. So I understand that. The non-van VAM, I understand that. As someone who was a high school principal and I saw the VAM teachers, which was a small portion of the teachers on campus, there was so much outside of their control, whereas the majority of the teachers on a high school campus are non-VAM, so they had an opportunity. So those who asked the question as, well, if a 3.0 to 3.499, why am I not in a non-VAM? Why am I not getting a stipend? Because you have more control of what happens in your classroom and with your students and the progress and all. So that would be my interpretation of it. Is that correct? Okay. I feel like this does what we've asked it to do. One, our goal is to increase salaries, so it does that. Two, compensate competitively. I think we're doing that in terms of our counselors, our OT, our PT. They could make far more in the private industry. And we can recoup some of those costs through the federal government. I think it's fiscally responsible in that we're pushing back the negotiation time from March to May because we don't know what the financial situation, so we're waiting for that, as well as with the health fund balance. So the word I get stuck on is equity. And this is where I do agree with what Ms. Baker's saying and what Ms. Fauntleroy is saying, and that is, you know, we have to be careful about tossing that word out and concerning ourselves with making everyone equitable. It's not going to happen. I would love for it to happen. In a perfect, ideal, utopian world, it would happen, but it's not going to happen. Because the bottom line is this: 2 kids in first grade get in a scuffle, the teacher pulls them apart. 2 kids in high school get in a scuffle, it's a whole different thing, okay? There are differences at the campuses. I was okay in a high school campus, not that I love breaking up, getting in the fights, but little bitties, that's not my cup of tea. I'm looking at Ms. Hebler, she was great at Covington Elementary. That's not my cup of tea. There are probably some advantages that I had that she didn't have to worry about, and elementary school principals and teachers, didn't have to worry about, and vice versa. So I get worried that when we start to look at equity and say, well, what about this one? Well, what about this one? Well, what about this one? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, as the school board member, charge the superintendent with getting his staff out there to look at the different schools and say, what can we do to minimize the problems? Because extra money may sound like a good deal and all that, but at the end of the day, if somebody's working for 8 hours and 30 minutes and somebody's working for 7 hours, that's too much inequity. That's too much inequity. So I do think we need to do that, and I think we all have to like, look at what we're doing and the school we've signed up to be at, the job we've signed up for, and say, can I do this at this rate of pay? And again, I'm not talking about the 8.5 versus 7 hour. I'm talking about the inequity that is just natural with the fact that your pre-K teacher is not going to have the same challenges at high school and vice versa. And I think that we as people who are supposed to take care of kids and our administration in working with our our teachers and employees say, look, this is our school, what can we do? Not to, every time, you know, you do something, I'm gonna give you a ATM, here, go get this money, this, you get this, you get this, you get this. When we start doing that, we've lost the idea of why we're in school. Because as a teacher, if you came in this to just work 7 hours, get summers off, and get rich, you were in the wrong business. If you haven't figured that out, then I don't understand why we hired you, okay? Again, I'm not talking about the 7 versus 8.5, but I think we need to find a happy medium, and that's what I charge our superintendent to do, to get his staff out there, get our principals talking to our teachers and say, let's find a happy medium, okay? The equity, you know, I think it's great that we try to, I don't want to say incentivize coaches to go to the playoffs and all that, because as a high school person myself, and the coaches needed no incentive to try to get state championship. They wanted that state champion. They wanted those different championships. They wanted to go to the playoffs. But there's inequity in that, because there's a lot of people that play a part in when they go to the playoffs, and we're not compensating them in the same dollar amount. So I think we need to be careful when we say the word equity, because we're not going to get there, because that's utopia. So we need to use good judgment, look at what we're doing, see how we can be more effective and more efficient. And then I'm glad you said what you had said earlier, Mr. Osborne. If we sign this MOU, if we approve this MOU and it goes into effect, come December, if we're bleeding money because everybody is putting in timesheets for 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, then we need to say, this is not working. What happened to us being a part of a team? What happened to us trying to be champions? So that's all I'm saying. That is why I am supporting it, with the hope that we can fix up some of these, shore up some of these things that are problematic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Ms. McCollum?
Well, there's not too much more that I can add to what Ms. Baker says and what Ms. Fauntleroy says and now what Ms. Hanson has said. I do feel like that number 5 in the 90-minute duty is problematic. I don't understand how a small school like Brock has to have 350 minutes, if that is even correct, compared to a school in my district, which has pre-K also, and they have 150 minutes, I think. No, 135 minutes. Then something is wrong with scheduling, in my opinion, with that. And I don't want to just pick out 2 schools like that, but it seems to be district-wide that there are these discrepancies. I am, as these 3 ladies have expressed, extremely concerned about how to make this happen and the problems that this is going to create and the logistics and the time, both on the teachers and the administrators. And I know a lot of people that think that administrators sit in their office and eat bonbons, but I can tell you for a fact that that just doesn't happen anymore. Maybe a long time ago when I was first a teacher, and that was way back when. We won't talk about that, but this day and time, that just does not happen, and they don't have the time to nitpick They've mentioned some situations. Another situation that just popped in my head that was shared with me with my principals is, I mean, somebody's absent, somebody else takes their duty, and they have to be the people to go verify that. And the amount of time that's going to take just is incomprehensible in terms of that. So if I agree with everything, and Mr. Jabbia and this team, you guys, and it's my understanding that the majority of this MOU came from our administration, and I think y'all have done a phenomenal job with all of it. And I am so proud that we are being able to offer this amount of salary raises for our teachers, because by George, they do deserve it and more. I wish we could give them more. And true, if the bond had not passed, we wouldn't be able to do any of this to amount to anything. But, I mean, if we pass this MOU with this stipulation with the hourly 90-minute duty, then I have to, in my mind, be assured that, one, we have streamlined this reporting process to a level that is not overwhelming to anyone, teachers and especially administrators in this case, because they're going to get the overload, I can tell you that. And then, two, that we have gone and studied each school to support them. And maybe there are reasons why they have to, I mean, I know there are reasons why some schools have to be more than others, especially little babies. But there's got to be some support there and help to help them realize where we have to keep the safety. That is not an issue. It has to be there, and how we can make that happen. And that is a big job. So I hope, I want to be assured that that's going to happen. That's just all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Baker, if you'll hang out for a second. Mr. Harrell?
Thank you, President Green. I appreciate all your work that you've done on this. I know your staff's worked hard on it. I really appreciate, like they've all said, the amount of effort and work you put into getting the bond passed. Because without that passing and the amount of work that you've done, Superintendent Jabbia, we wouldn't be here to even argue about this. I've talked to you about a lot of this stuff privately where I have some issues within this document. I know a lot of the pay raises and different things were done for retention of, people leaving, going to other districts or getting them to select. Do we have any data on them doing that, or is that just kind of what we speculate why they leave or why they don't choose us to come here?
In July, Steve's going to give an exit report on the data we've gathered, and we've kind of streamlined that process. People have left for a lot of different reasons. I can't say. Our goal was to, get our salary to a point in our area to where we could be as competitive as possible to try to maintain and hopefully recruit. I was on a call today with Dr. Wainwright, who is Southeastern is probably our #1 supplier of educators, hands down.
Right.
And just trying everything we can. And he's got some new plans with the state to try to pay our interns, people that are doing student teaching basically, because it's a year now. So we're going to work on those things. But yeah, that mainly it was to try to maintain what we have, retain our people, and to continue to recruit those. Because Southeastern, those kids can choose, they're probably going to go home, or they're going to choose a parish that's pretty close to home. So we're competing with Livingston and Ascension and Tangi, and I don't really consider ourselves competing with anyone South Shore, directly South Shore, but definitely the North Shore, we're competing with all of them for sure.
Okay. And I know I spoke to Ms. Lelaney previously. I know there's a lot of complaints about, I hate to dive into the cafeteria stuff, but there's a lot of, the complaints about the quality of food or, improving the school lunches and doing what we can there. I would be, I hate to see us commit so much money to one section when we've got complaints there? If we need to improve the budget of food service to probably offer better quality food, do we have that money available? I know she said she's trying to make significant cuts and changes, so would that be enough to improve the actual lunch quality?
She's working on changing the menu now because we get reimbursed by participation. So she's doing everything she can to increase participation. You know, if you have a cafeteria full of food and only 10 kids eat, you're only reimbursed from the government on the 10 kids that ate, no matter how much you prepared. So, you know, she's been really taking a deep dive, using our students as, over the last few months before school got out, what are things students really want to eat and will participate in lunch? So that's what she's really been trying to
And that's
work
what, like, I love shepherd's pie.
Right.
I don't think anybody cooks it anymore except school cafeterias, so the kids probably don't want to eat it. Because they don't eat it at home.
That's
It's,
fact.
you know? So I would like to make sure that we give her the money that she needs to
Absolutely.
improve the quality of school.
Absolutely.
Because I'll be honest, I was disappointed in that commodity fish that we got for a little bit.
I know that's that fish still
It
gets in your
affects me.
craw. I know.
And looking at this, the only thing, I like the fact that we are committing to a salary, or committing to pay raise and permanent. I do wish some of it was still a stipend. I wish we had more stipend than what we do, but I understand. We've talked over the years about, you know, trying to get more money for some of the maintenance departments at air condition, electrical, plumbing. I would have liked to have seen more for those guys to, you know, so we can keep them, because we really are losing quality maintenance guys
We are.
to other private people.
Private facilities, correct.
Be a champion stipend. I can tell you, I dropped my kid off at school. School ended last week. I dropped him off this morning for football practice. You wouldn't believe the number of kids at Fountain High this morning between, I think, wrestling training, volleyball, football. Those coaches already started for next year.
Yes, sir, they have.
So, I mean, I like to be a champion stipend. I would have liked to be a coach stipend, and let's try to get more for the coaches.
We'll definitely continue to look at it. But as Ms. Hanson said, there's a lot more than, when you start looking at supplemental, when you start, it can talk about slippery slopes.
No, I know it's
It opens
slippery.
up
I just-
Pandora's box, because we have all the people that supplement and that are auxiliary units around every one of those sports. You know, it's just, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I know there's a lot of hidden costs
It's a
in there.
lot.
I just, you know, when I've talked to some principals, it's now become not so much finding a good coach for the team, it's finding a coach for the team.
Totally agree with you.
You know, and I mean, I think that affects it. And like I said, all summer long, they're gonna probably be out there. I don't wanna violate any, rules or anything, but they were out there at 7 o'clock this morning, starting their workouts today, for next year. I mean, I don't wanna repeat what they said about the duty schedules. I hate to say it, if we don't cut it out now, I don't think we'll ever actually get around to coming back and fixing it. I think it'll keep being there until next year. So I'd like to see something done to address it immediately, not December or whatever, you know. I think that's it, and I guess next summer we'll look at, you know, maybe getting a little more money for the maintenance guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Ms. Hurstius.
Thank you, President Green. Also, just to correct everybody, my last name is actually pronounced Hurstis.
There we go.
The second I is not. Right, Brian? Just, okay, just wanted to correct everybody. All right, to go on my notes. I appreciate everybody's efforts in negotiating. I know that was probably a lot of work, I can imagine, because there's a lot in this, which I love. I think this is awesome. All the raises in here, yay! This is good. I like everything in here. More than I would have thought of, for sure. I would have just been like, give them the money, you get a raise. No. But anyway, just kind of a thought I'm throwing out there. I just, as I was reading this, with my notes, I know that, like, our administration has been really wanting to do a lot of this for a while, but, and I'm not trying to stir anything, which I do anyway, though. Without the Federation, though, would we have done any of this without the Federation coming to the table and trying to negotiate an MOU or anything? Or like having a CBA? Would we have done this on our own for our teachers and
I was
employees?
committed to a pay raise, and so were the board officers. We talked about that pre-negotiations. We were committed to a pay raise.
Okay. All right. Then another question that I had, so everybody's talking about the duties and everything, and I get it, and I'm all the number 5. So to kind of, I guess, balance everything out, first question would be, can we get volunteers to do that, or does it have to be teachers and staff? Could we get like some PTA people, or is that like a safety issue?
It becomes a safety issue, knowing,
Okay.
it just, of course, we advocate for using PTA people to help, especially like field days and things when we have events going on with a lot of people there. We're always looking for volunteers, but our duty spots have to be manned by our personnel.
Okay,
by our-
well,
by our
I was just,
trained personnel.
yeah, I didn't know.
Yes, ma'am.
So to, just kind of something I thought of too, I know everybody's, this whole, and I know it's gonna be a nightmare with, spreadsheets, because I'm a nut for spreadsheets, I love them. And, but to kind of maybe a compromise, is there any way that the schools and, like just the schools that are gonna go over the 90 minutes, which I'm assuming all the schools go over 90 minutes? No, not all of them?
Basically, a lot of your K-6.
The little ones are going
K6.
over the 90 minutes. So to say the schools that are going over 90 minutes, can we just throw out maybe like an equal bonus? And I'm just throwing out a silly number, but say like, oh, $50 bonus for the ones that go over the 90 minutes. And that way, I know it's not gonna be perfect, because I know some people gonna do 60 whatever minutes overtime, and then some might do 100 minutes overtime, and some people might do 100 and something overtime. But just to make everybody happy, hey, you get a $50 bonus. That way it's quick, easy, blah, 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 blah. And then not everybody will be happy, but it'll be logistically a little bit easier, and it might not be so hard on the budget at the end of the day. Just a thought, instead of being, I got 10 hours, and then I got 120 hours. You see what I'm saying? Minutes, da, 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 da. So just a thought, throwing that out there. Might be easy just to, just like that whole like 10% flat income tax, would be great. All right, just a thought. Okay, next. We started our year in a deficit, right? We're starting our year in a deficit. I understand how we found our money, this magic money for lunches, how we're dipping into our funds. And so, and we always had this hard time trying to find money for these stipends. The last 2 years, we've been having a hard time finding money for these stipends. But now all of a sudden, we got all this money for the raises. I'm wondering, what funds are we digging into for this?
Okay. We're not digging into any funds.
Okay.
The deficit for last year, I based these calculations on the superintendent's numbers that they've cut $6 million in salaries and benefits. So
Okay.
I'm projecting a deficit at the moment. I won't know what that deficit is until payroll posts, of around 6 million. So that washes. So for next year, we should start at 0. Then I factored in everything I know at this point is gonna increase and everything that's gonna decrease, including food service. We didn't find money for food service, and we didn't dip into any funds, though, by the way. We just delayed funding to parish-wide, and we have other ways to fund that. So just to make that clear. and it's stipends, not stipends.
Sorry. Okay, stipends.
Yeah, but so balance with that and the cost of it, and then, of course, eliminating all the stipends, that was $4.2 million of the stipends we were doing targeted critical
Okay.
effectiveness. So that eliminates a lot of the cost. A normal step, which we would have done, we do that every year, is $3.3 million. The cost, when I netted down to everything that I know at this point, was $6 million. So this is costing us an additional beyond a step of $2.8 million. I think it's desperately needed for employee morale. I think we've got to be competitive with other school districts because we are falling. This gets us higher up there, and I just think it's critical that we do raises at this time, and we're going to have to balance the budget. So if we don't balance, we'll have to work on that further, look at positions, just keep doing that, streamline things and get us balanced. But we've got to pay our employees so that we're competitive with other districts because we are falling.
No, that's, I
yeah.
100%
Yeah.
agree, and I'm not saying, I'm just wanting to know where we're finding the money from. So for the
We're not
employee cuts.
We're not finding money. It's just, when you look at everything that's being eliminated,
Right.
we've got the retirement rate for state employees, for school employees' retirement, teachers' retirement, that rate dropped. So that's a savings right there of $3.5 million, I'm estimating. So that's part of it, right there. We're looking better on health insurance. I factored that in.
Okay.
Eliminating the stipends from last year at the way they were was $4.2 million eliminated.
Okay.
I factored in MFP decreased $3 million, so I took that out. I added in our sales taxes coming in better, so I added in a little more money for that. Then I costed out everything we have listed in the proposal, including I went ahead and projected the health and welfare contribution at $500,000 because that's what they're asking for. So when I got to the bottom, it was around $6 million, and that includes the additional money given to food service.
And the elimination of positions, Terry.
I'm sorry?
And the elimination
And
of
the
positions.
eliminations of positions.
So all I
Okay.
can do is project on what I know right now into the budget, so I feel comfortable with that. We're possibly going to still be in deficit, but we're just going to have to work on it over time. So, and as our revenues, we're just going to have to see what happens, but I don't think we have any choice but to give up our employees compensation, because we're in a very difficult position when we start falling in our salaries.
Yeah.
So I think it's critical for our school district, for us to do this. So, and then we'll just, when the budget's finished, we'll deal with that. We do have other funds to balance the budget. We still have about $16 million in CDL. So that gives us 2 or 3 years to get the budget in place before we'd have to dip into fund balance for general fund. So,
Could we have possibly have done this last year? Do everything that you're doing last year?
I would have been very uncomfortable doing it last year just because there was so much uncertainty. Things are looking better this year because the inflation was so bad last year. We're seeing a leveling. I was breaking budgets last year in December. This year, I'm just starting to see budgets getting run out of budgets now in areas that I was busting last year in December.
Even
because
though
of the inflations.
even though we're in a deficit, it's still better?
Oh, yeah, no, we're still better than we were last year as far as costing. But I won't know, there's a lot of additional coming into payroll with planning timesheets and things like that. Until we post that last payroll on June 30th, I won't know for sure how we end, and then the costs we have in the summer. Health insurance costs hit in the summer, so we'll have to see. But right now, we're looking good in health insurance. We have a surplus right now, which we haven't had in years. So that's very positive, so. So, it's a game. I'm not guaranteeing we won't be in deficit still, but I think it's critical that we do this raise at this time.
Oh, yeah, no,
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought we should have done it a long time ago. So I'm
Last year,
happy.
you wouldn't want to commit when you're not sure where things are going, because things were definitely on a decline last year. We were losing revenue, sales tax was down, but sales tax is back up. We also got the bump on the reassessment, so that helped. I didn't know what that was going to be when we did the budget last time, so
Yeah.
that comes into play.
Yeah, thanks, Assessor.
Yeah. It didn't turn out to be as much as he said, though, so to date, anyway.
Yeah, well,
So-
it was much for all of us.
Yeah, well, yeah,
You know?
yeah, we don't get all that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but yeah. So.
I know. But to go back to the duty thing, I mean, is that something that you guys could talk about, or does it have to be per hour? Or, I mean, how does that play? Can it be a flat fee, or, I mean, is that something y'all can go back to? I mean, how does that work?
I'll file away your idea, and we'll discuss it once we
Oh,
get some
it's
data.
filed right there?
We got it right
Okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah, so
All
I,
right.
I just, again, I just prefer that we do this for employees and, see how it works and tweak it if we need to. You know, there's got to be a way to use technology to beat the timesheet thing. I get that that's a drudgery. But I don't know, maybe a tiered set of stipends, but again, we'd have to sit down and really work that out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that in real time. That'd be
Okay.
a little tough.
Well, I'm just hoping it doesn't deter anybody's vote. That's all. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herstis. Ms. Rufino Gallagher, stipends, Herstis,
Tomatoes, tomatoes. All right, as I already said, thank you for doing it. So I just have some questions. That does not mean I'm for or against, please just bear with me. You answered one, Terry, that the cost for us for the raises, for the support and all that would be like 3.3 million. Is that what you said? If I wrote my notes right?
That's a normal one step. That's what we normally have every year.
Okay, so what's it
So
gonna cost us
it's-
for this?
I'm projecting around $6 million.
6 million, okay.
So the difference is like 2.8 million more than we normally would have done.
Okay.
Yep.
Which would then bring me to a completely side part of, everybody's talking about because the bond went through. So what is our normal, what is it called, parish-wide construction fund? What's our budget normally? What do we put in the budget for that?
It varies, but for the last couple of years, it's been 3 million. But I'm proposing to do 2 million.
Is
for
that
next year.
including the money we take from general funds on top of that?
That is from general fund.
So we don't ever start with a budget? We always take it just from general funds? I just
General
want to
fund
clarify.
is, the budget for parish-wide is a transfer from general fund. That's its revenue. So, yeah, basically parish-wide is general fund, it's just kept separate.
Okay, so with all the money that we're getting for the bonds of every single possible school listed,
Right.
except for a handful.
Right.
We still only think $1 million coming off of that budget is,
Yes. Yes,
Because-
because we're wrapping up the 2019 bond issue, and because we've invested the money and we've received premiums, we're going to have money left over at the end once we do the last project, and that we'll be able to bring to the board and do some parish-wide projects with that money. It has to be spent on capital projects. So
correct,
we'll be
but
able to
not,
bring
but
that
we,
money.
so that will, however much money that might be.
Right.
Whatever, $3, $6, $5 million.
It's more than that. Yeah, it's larger.
But what I'm saying is, so the money, the projects that we already have, we have that much more to do that we couldn't use some of that money towards payroll? Or does it have to go
No,
to
you
construction?
can't, no, it has to be used for capital.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Because that was my thing too. Everybody's talking about the bond. Thank you for this. Well, the bond had nothing to do with salaries.
It would have, because we would have had to fund all of our things that are critical.
No,
at
what I'm
general
saying
fund.
is the
Yeah.
bond itself, nothing was written in there to pay salaries.
No, but what they're talking about, if it wouldn't have passed, we would have had to pay for the capital expenditures
Right.
out of general fund, which would impact salaries.
Okay.
So that's what they're talking about.
So, well, I just think, this is my thought, if all this money is going to these other things, and we normally have 3 million and you're proposing 2, all the other things should have been in the bond, so we really might not even need that much money to put in construction from the beginning. It's my opinion. You don't have to answer it, it's just my opinion.
No, we've got a lot of projects still on parish-wide that we weren't able to get in the bond. It's a lot of money still. I mean, I'm not sure what the total is, but it's still.
Do we have a list of those somewhere?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yes.
There's 32 schools that aren't in the bond, and
Yeah.
safety, security, upgrades, fixing things that happen, leaky roofs, ACs that go out. Those are not anything that we can prepare for. Those have to be dealt with as they come in.
Okay,
Yes.
but when you say that, don't we have a specific fund for safety and security now? Didn't we reallocate some money for safety and
We have money
security?
allocated for safety and security, but what I'm saying is, if we need a fence replaced, if we need a gate fixed, if whatever the case might be, when
And
it
that
comes
can't
down
come out
to-
of that fund?
It would, come
Okay.
out of that fund. Then we have to bring it to you guys, you gotta approve it, then we gotta do it. With parish-wide, if it's a small project, it goes to the project report and we can get it fixed immediately. We can go back and move those funds, ask your permission to cover that because it was a safety and security, and then
Got it.
roll that back over. But yes,
Okay.
that can be done.
Okay. Hold on. They already spoke on duty, so I won't even get into that. Why would some teachers not have a duty-free lunch on their schedule? I'm just curious.
Somebody's gotta watch kids while they eat. Someone's gotta be on duty. There's gotta be people on whether it be recess duty, whether it be in the
Okay.
cafeteria. If we don't have enough lunch monitors, someone's got to watch the kids.
Okay.
And it takes more than just the administrators.
Okay.
As a teacher, I coached, so I did my 2 duties at lunchtime. That way it didn't interfere. I ran the weight room in the morning. Mr. Harrell was talking about, Slaughter High was a late school. I ran the weight room at 7:30 in the morning till we started school, and I coached in the afternoon. So I did my 2 duties. I had 2 duties. I did them at lunch. So
Okay.
I just gave up my lunch and did my 2 duties then. It was what it was.
Okay. My other question is on, and I know it's been discussed, and I think you gave an answer, but I don't know that it was understood, so not today, via email, whatever. On the Chromebook management stipend, I'm trying to figure out, like, for a school that only has 300 Chromebooks, that stipend is the same for a school who has 2,000 Chromebooks. So I'm just trying to figure out how that is, and could it not be tiered depending on how many students you have? Because it just seems, I know Ms. Hanson was talking about equitable, but that's a huge inequity.
We will explain, but it has to be part of the demand stipend, so it had to be that figure. We would have gone less money if we could have, but it had to go that figure. But we will get into that. There's more, even though there's only 300 Chromebooks, they only have a paratech 1 day a week. So those people are doing paratech jobs all day, every day to get it done. Where in high school, it could be a simple reset button and the paratech is there to help out. They're paid to help on high school campus every day. So, but I will get Lewis to answer and I'll explain how that works.
Oh, right now?
Does that make sense? No, I'm saying.
Oh, I know, he was about to push the button, I'm like, you talking about right now? Like, I don't,
I was trying to answer for Lewis, but he's not going to jump
well,
in.
go ahead. Like, in my head, I'm like, okay, if I'm at Cypress Cove, well, my kindergartners don't have Chromebooks, my first graders do. Well, but but that school only has maybe, I don't know how many kids, but if I'm at North Shore and I got triple the amount, how is
They also
Ms.
have
Hart getting the same stipend I'm getting, and I'm taking care of 3 times as many computers?
they have a paratech dedicated at the high school level.
Mhm.
The K-8s, the paratech is only there 1 day a week, and they do work like the full day, so they're there that full day to help them. But that person, whoever's receiving the Chromebook stipend, would the other 4 days of that week be managing and supporting those Chromebooks. And even your kindergarten and pre-K still have Chromebooks in the classroom. They're just not dedicated to an individual student. We have classroom sets, so they're still checking those out, helping us pick them up. And like right now, we said we were going to keep those Chromebooks with the students. So if you have a class or a school that's 4, 5, 6, I'm moving those Chromebooks from 6th grade to the 7th grade so that they're waiting for them in August. So that person is helping us get those ready so that we can move them. So the workload is not necessarily tied to the volume of the Chromebooks. It could also be your younger students are breaking the Chromebooks at a higher rate, and they may need more support as well. So
Okay.
there is a variance.
And then the only other thing for that, it says it's specifically for certificated employees, so we don't have anybody that's non-certified being our Chromebook people. Because if we do, that's a problem for me, huge problem.
As of now, I know of no non-certified person, because you have TRTs, you have teachers, you have counselors, you have assistant principals. Beyond that, I don't know.
A lot of librarians.
Yeah,
Okay,
librarians.
I'm just making sure, like, since it's specifically
They're
stated
all
that, like, I'm hoping that there's no school that has a long-term sub helping with Chromebooks, and they don't, I don't know, that's all I'm asking, because it's specifically stated that, I want to make sure that if somebody is helping, they're getting compensated as well, just because they're not certified.
They're going to mandate a certified person to do that job.
Yes.
Okay.
Or help in that, however they're breaking it up.
Okay, for the critical stipend fund, I'm assuming that's like math, the teachers that we can't get, is that correct? For whoever?
It was, we don't have it anymore.
Well, it's removing the critical subject stipend, that's what I'm asking about.
Yeah, right
That
now,
one.
those things that were determined by Steve or by HR and the LDOE that were shortage, couldn't find teachers, we used to compensate those people that were in those subject areas, correct?
So are all those spots filled?
No.
So that's where I have a problem with taking this away, because we have asked these kids to pass 7th and 8th grade math, science, social studies, and English. And if we can get a certified teacher and there's no incentive for them to come here, but we're still asking these kids to pass these classes, I just have a problem with it.
$250 was not enough to recruit a certified teacher in that area.
Okay.
I wish it was. The guaranteed pay raise might get some teachers in there that weren't in the field or in our system at that time.
Okay.
That, improving the starting pay is gonna absolutely do more
Right.
than $250 would.
Agreed. Well, it was 500, but that's okay.
Well, 500, yes.
Can somebody tell me what a mobile science lab facilitator is?
Go ahead, Kim.
So we have a STAR lab now, that fund will come from federal programs anyway. So the STAR lab, we actually have it now in St. Tammany, and we can go to each school and do it. LSU used to, you can rent it from LSU, but now we have our own, so that's just a person on a timesheet that does that.
Okay. All right. There's one more on the name of somebody, because the certified curriculum development stipend, $30 an hour, we already have that. Are we just changing the name of it?
We're just adding assessment writing to the description. So it says curriculum development, I think now, and so we're adding assessment writing. So it's just additional wording, so it makes sure we.
So it's the same person, just additional,
Well,
okay.
same stipend.
I get it. I just didn't understand the way it's written, because I saw it on the salary schedule already, and I was like, well, that doesn't say rename it. It just says, okay, that's fine.
It was rewritten.
Y'all talked about all this other stuff. So I will go to the Be a Champion stipend. While my kids play sports 100% all the time. We're giving them a $2,500 raise, which is going to increase their percentage that they're going to get already. I feel like giving stipends just for sports instead of something more for just education in general, like if your whole class passes the LEAP test, you should get a $500 stipend. Like, I feel like we're emphasizing on sports. And again, my kids play sports. So their coach might want to hit me right now, and it's fine. I feel like there's a lot on that. And then in regards to some of the other things, there's, and I looked at the thing, there's other things that are like a year long, like dance and cheer teams and even the color guard. Their stipends are way smaller than the football team, and they work all year, but yet there's no additional stipend if they win like the national dance, whatever it's called, or the national DCA and whatever they're called. So I'm curious as to how that's going to pan out. And I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of coaches make the playoffs, and I'm sure any coach in this room will probably be very upset with me at the moment. But I mean, these are big money, but we wanted to stop giving stipends to teachers. And these same people are still getting this $2,500 raise that they're also getting. So now we're going to give them on top of that. So I guess that's a two-part. Like, we have some year-long ones that don't get as much as football, but probably work just as long. And then we're giving stipends for making it to the playoffs, but we don't want to give extra stipends to teachers for their classes doing good on LEAP or something. So
It's a small amount of money for the athletics. I think we projected 80,000, but if we did the LEAP, it would be a huge dollar. The only way we could afford the big raise was to eliminate some of the stipends, or we wouldn't have been able to do the $2,550 and the $1,750 for support. We had to eliminate.
right, but
some
for
of the
this small percentage of people where they're getting a raise and a big stipend,
We started with LHSA sports. As Mr. Osborne can tell you, we wanted to start somewhere and see how it goes, see how kind of things play out. LHSA sports, the ones that are listed primarily, those are all the ones that are in the handbook. We don't typically have every single one of those, but in case we did, we wanted to make sure that it was all, we had to start somewhere. And if dance or cheer had a state competition, we probably could have found a way to include them, but they don't.
right,
And
but they have,
Nationals is a choice.
right,
Nationals
but they
is a
have
choice.
district competitions for like district kids, like
Not high
junior high
school
doesn't go to
level.
state.
This is all high school sports.
Okay.
These are all high school sports.
So junior high doesn't fall under
Junior high does
LHSAA?
not fall into LHSA. no.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
think that my only other question on the reclassify the salary of existing, the speech pathologists and all that group, but nurses aren't listed. Don't they have to reduce certifications every couple years and do stuff like that? And we're not going to give them a little extra? I'm just curious.
We pay for certifications, but everybody's certified. So you got to remember, teachers are certified. So we only did licensed employees. So people that were required a license for us to get Medicaid funding and to do that job. So that's the only people that were included. Anybody that was just a certificate was not included because that is thousands of people. So unfortunately, yeah. But we do pay for their certificates. We've got a separate provision. We pay for all those, their
Okay.
certificates.
And then the only last thing I have is this thing on the health and welfare fund. We're just asking to move it.
Yeah, I just
And
want to get more
unaudited
data.
statements through June 30th, like, we don't even have those yet.
Right.
But it's part of this MOU.
Right, well, I'm asking to defer the, determining the amount to fund the health and welfare fund until we get their financial statements.
Okay.
So that's why I've moved it to July, requested that, so that's why it's in there.
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, back to Ms. Baker.
Thank you. Just three quick things, and I promise I quit. Out of our $500 million budget, with all the raises, removing some of the stipends, and without this nickel and diamond business on the 90 minutes, what percentage of our budget is now payroll? Meaning salaries, benefits, and retirement.
It's gonna always stay around the 86 because when you increase the salary line, you're also increasing the total line. So the percentage is not gonna change. It's just gonna be a tiny blip because your total expenditures are changing. So your total salaries are changing, so your percentage is always gonna be.
Okay.
It's about, what I projected was like 86.91%. But, that's just projection. So we're still below 87.
Okay. Because from our education as a board, it's usually, the suggested is between 80 and 85. Now, with a district this size and all the extras that we offer, I mean, we take
We
pride.
haven't been 85 then, and I can't even remember.
Yeah, I mean, when I first came on the board, I've never seen 85.
We've actually been higher in the past, so it's dropped to below 87% in the last couple of years.
Well, that's good. That's
you
good.
know, just in total.
Okay, to the supervisors, I'm so grateful that y'all are gonna go out, but at the same time, we have to be cognizant that these principals are not making duty decisions in isolation. So they have a duty committee, they know their campus, they know the hot spots, they know where there's a problem, they know, I just don't want, I know y'all are gonna do amazing, cause y'all always do, but there's a reason why they like, one of my schools is a 12-acre campus with, when school starts, up to, 3-year-olds coming to school, so they need that supervision. But I do trust that y'all are gonna do awesome in working with the principals and that duty committee. And then finally, I think it is absolutely imperative that we take a vote on this, but I would like to amend the motion to remove this and give it a hard date for Mr. Osborne and Mr. Jabbia to look at, so there's no kids to go take any data. So if we said by the end of September, come back and make an offer, do another, remove this portion, because that's a lot of money, over $1 million, to come up with on duty numbers. So there, we couldn't tell you what to do, but it just seems like, could you go from 90 to 100 minutes? Or how about, since it's on your job schedule, on your job description, that you're there 5 minutes before school and you have to be there 10 minutes after anyway, as per your job description. Do we have to count those minutes? To me, that's double dipping. So I think it would be disingenuous for us not to take a vote on this, because I think teachers need to know how valued they are, and that we're behind them. And and we want to do this, but until those, I would just, can I make a friendly amendment and say maybe by the end of September, after y'all have collected your data, the supervisors have met with the principals and the duties committees, that come offer us something better on that section. Now, can y'all do that? Both of y'all, I guess I'm asking. Well, first of all, do I have a second? Does anybody want to second my motion?
What exactly is your motion?
My motion is
Sorry, you just rambled.
I'm sorry.
To
To
accept
approve
the
it.
MOU
Yeah.
with the exception of number 5, which was the.
Okay.
with a hard date of maybe what's reasonable. I mean, if y'all need to take 2 minutes and talk about it.
A friendly amendment would need to be accepted by Mrs. Hurstis. Ms. Hurstis, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, since you made the motion.
If not, it doesn't have to be friendly, and then we just need to vote on her amendment. It would be mean. It would be a mean amendment.
I mean, I guess, I mean, yeah, I guess so, yeah. I mean,
Sorry. We'll get the first.
What, I would, for it to pass, yeah, I mean, because I would hate for that to be, for it to not pass because of that one thing. Why y'all put it on me?
So let me ask you, I'm sorry, President Green, may I ask you this? So if we allow the friendly amendment, then the friendly amendment would have to
becomes
be
the
passed.
motion. It becomes the motion.
Would have to be passed. And if it
not,
doesn't
then
pass.
we need to vote on the amendment, then we go back to the motion.
Okay. Look, I mean, Ms. Baker, you and I agree 99.9% of the time.
And I'm okay when we don't.
And it's okay when we don't. I respectfully say, I don't know that September would have enough data also. I mean, the reason I would prefer us to just go ahead and accept this is because I feel like the superintendent has done his due diligence with this. I feel like the staff has done their due diligence with this. I feel like Ms. Prevost has done her due diligence with this. And, you know, I'm going to put my faith in, not that you're not, but I think, and I'm going to say this with a strong caveat, if in December we are bleeding, because there are people that are, I did 10 minutes, I did 5 minutes, I did this. If we are bleeding and we are inundating, you know, with business fairs, and we're inundating our principals, and we come to the table and we say, we need an MOU where we're taking this out, I need that people to understand that we're gonna do this. I'm sorry. Because we tried it and it didn't work. I know it's hard to take away once you've put in, but if I can't have assurance that we're not going to be amicable with taking it out or modifying it because it's not working, then, you know, then I'll go ahead and support the friendly amendment right now.
So where are we on the support of the friendly amendment? Yes or no?
Yes or no to the friendly amendment? No.
No, all right, so now we have an amendment to the motion to eliminate the number 5, which is regarding the
No,
duty.
we don't have, I said no. No to
Well, it's not a friendly amendment, but it's still amendment.
Oh, it's not friendly.
So
Oh, no, it's me.
it's a substitute motion
No, it's me.
to amend the acceptance of the MOU to eliminate number 5. So it's back to public comment.
Well, I thought it would be
Ms.
eliminated,
Underwood?
but that I wouldn't have the motion at all.
You don't get
Okay,
that,
so-
unfortunately.
So effectively, if that passes, then Superintendent Jabbia and I would just have to go back to the table. That would
Just
be-
for number 5.
Well, it is a deal, you know, the whole thing is a deal. It's all a package.
Wait, I'm very confused. Wait, I have to stop. I'm sorry. Time out. Because I'm very confused. I thought if I said no, it would drop what Mrs. Baker would want. How does that work?
She's offering a substitute motion. If it was a friendly amendment to your motion, then we could vote on that. Otherwise, If you don't accept that, then we just have, we now need to discuss a substitute motion, which if that fails, we go back to
The original.
the original motion, which is what you want.
Which is what I want. But if I said a friendly amendment, then it would be, then
If
we
you-
would have to vote on that, then it would be
Removing the duty.
okay. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Mr. our public comment, Mr. Osborne, you're
Yeah,
up.
just saying, so if this motion passes and 5 is eliminated, then we would have to go back and renegotiate the whole package. That's how that would work. So now, I could suggest that is how collective bargaining
Yeah,
works.
I mean, it
with the
really,
chief
it is,
negotiator.
it is. So
It is. Yeah.
so we're asking if we don't approve any provision that's in this, then we don't approve the whole thing, and it has to, whatever the result of this document is, has to be approved by you two, just like it is, and we come back in a board meeting and approve the total package.
Correct.
Am I
Mr.
wrong?
Green, may I?
No, hang on.
Can I just make a comment? We have to have a salary schedule by the end of June, by law.
Yep.
That's in the law now. I think I don't know the numbers yet on this, but I can tell you from dealing with the planning time, Mary and I worked heavily on the planning time. We built a spreadsheet of everyone we thought was not getting their planning time. Only half of those people, I would guess, turned in time sheets. It was about half, maybe. Mary can probably.
I would say it was more than that.
It was a little
probably.
more than half, but it was a lot less cost. There are gonna be people that don't turn this in, that don't wanna fool with it. So I think we're overly concerned, with the $15. It's not gonna bleed us. I think the projection was like 489, and that's a very, very high number. So I would say maybe you're talking about 200,000, maybe. If it falls in line with the planning time was their hourly rate calculated at their minute rate. So this is only $15. So I think you need to trust that these supervisors, because they did it with the planning time. They got out there and they fixed the problem, so we're not gonna have to pay these people next year. And I think they're gonna do the same thing with this $15, the duty time. They're gonna get out and evaluate and try to eliminate it as much as possible. So I think it's gonna be not that much cost. That's just my gut feeling on this.
For the 90 minutes, if everybody went that was over 90 minutes, it would be much more cost.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things,
I'm gonna let, yeah.
the elementary duty and planning, we were close, a lot of schools were close to the 225 minutes of planning. Then the duty is just a different animal. Because especially at the elementary schools, you're talking about very young children that have to be supervised. Not only do you have to get them into the car physically and out of the car when they walk. So we have some campuses are very vast. Some campuses have roads going through them. And so it's not like, hey, I'm gonna stand here and 200 feet down have another person, adults are walking children. And so I think, while I do think there's a few schools, and our team will 100%, make sure we're working with our schools to make sure that they are keeping kids safe in the manner that makes the most sense. Of this 34, 29 are over the 90 minutes. So while there may be some outliers that we can do, elementary schools have to supervise children and keep kids safe.
I just want a point of clarity, because Mr. Osborne we don't have any approval to amend this document. So we either accept it or we don't. And so the substitute motion really, we can suggest what don't like, but we can't amend this document without
The approval of the union.
going back to.
Yes. Look, it's very difficult to explain the ramifications. That's why I partially answered the question before. It's a pendulum swing, okay? So look, this is completely agreed upon by your lead negotiator and the Federation. So if you approve it, you're done. If you amend it, they have to technically go back to the table. Now, in practice, we all know they're not going to go over all the provisions that they've worked so hard to get to. They're going to now hyper-focus on what you're calling number 5. And either the union will agree to taking it out or not. And then you're up against a deadline that Terry said is June 30th on the salary schedule. So I don't know how to say this, but I've spent all day on this one issue of $15 an hour for duties that arguably are included in the job duties, and it does get down to the lower schools, but you don't have the data to support how much this is going to cost. And I think you're overemphasizing how many people will turn in the timesheets. And management, I know, is going to solve this through the obvious. If you hit 80 hours of, quote, mandatory extra duties, you get nothing. So you've got to be over the 90 minutes for certified teachers. So you use the equation to create a better financial result. But you can't do that from where you're sitting. It has to be done with the principals and the administration. So in fairness, after the length of time that's been negotiated, if you approve your salary schedule and monitor it, that's probably going to be a better answer than asking the Federation to rehash something that they hashed out. Now, here's one little bit of advice. Take it or leave it. This was created by state law, Act 311. Everyone's read it multiple times. What I would advise you is to not default to state law, which is incredibly unclear. And you're negotiating down to $15 an hour. Well, state law suggests 30. See? So, you're at the point where, look, 434, and Mr. Jabbia is the one that told me about this today. Because on the legislative, the state official site, they haven't even amended to take out the provision on collective bargaining. Again, 434 dealing with the planning time. The law had an out in it. It was if you collectively bargained like we're doing, then the collective bargaining agreement formed the law between the parties, okay? So you have now a focus on 17.418. And it has a strange little provision in it that says, this can't be construed as collective bargaining. You following me? So why did they put that in the law? I really don't know, but it opens this argument. If you collectively bargain something like your district did just before today's meeting, and you've got a signed agreement, this forms a law between the party. The question is, if you don't pass it, then what do you get? You get 17.418, and it suggests paying $30 an hour for the mandatory duties that go above 90 minutes. So I think Terry said it from a financial perspective. You're hyper-focused on an issue you don't know how much it's going to cost. From a legal perspective, I'm saying don't default to state law. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so.
And then the amendment stuff, to say it on the record, the friendly amendment would have allowed a modification of this. From a board's perspective, you had to get Ms. Hurstis's, so I skipped the I, did I get it right? Approval and Ms. McCollum's, and that failed. So now you've got an amended motion, and I think you got a second,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm just, again, I don't think we can really amend this.
The board
We
can
either
amend
vote
it,
for it
but it
or
won't.
against it, and with suggestions that they go back
No.
and renegotiate
Well,
certain points.
that's certainly, you can look at it that way, but the same is true if you amend it and you get a positive vote to amendment, it's ineffective. It hasn't been agreed upon by the Federation. So, you see, everyone is on the same page, and that in the interest of the fees, big picture, you might want to approve this thing and monitor the minutia of this $15 an hour, which is less than state law.
Can we
I'm trying to
require
make the same
them to
suggestion.
revisit in X amount? Okay, that's it.
Yes, sir.
I suggest, add to this motion to pass the MOU with the direction that Superintendent Jabbia sit down with the Federation on September 30th, 2026 to revisit item 5. And that way we have the data.
25 or 25?
Wait, where am I at?
26 ought to give us
Well,
plenty of data.
You're right. Well, it's whatever the board wants. Hopefully we'd have enough data in September. You good with that, Frank? Yes, 2025, September 30th, 2025. And that way I think we satisfy everything. and we would have some hard data to look at. Is that, I think it kind of does the same thing in a sense.
Yeah, I just don't want you guys to have to go back and negotiate this and then us have another special board meeting
Right.
to approve it.
Exactly.
So I would much rather if this board would approve this as it's written with the directive to Mr. Jabby and you two to come together on number 5 and reach some sort of agreement that maybe works for most of us.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Good, yes, thank you.
All right, so do we still have?
Mr. Jabby has something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got public so we still had some public comment.
Sorry.
Hi, everybody. Leslie Martin. I'm the principal of Marigny Elementary School. And first, I just want to say that I'm just finishing my 34th year as an educator. 34 years I did after-school bus duty. 34 years I did not get one extra penny for doing bus duty. I did it because I love being a teacher. I love being an educator. But I value what the teachers at my school do. I'm just finishing my 16th year as a principal, and we cannot do what we do each day without every single person on our campus taking care of the children. I have children from age 3 to 7. All that y'all spoke to is right. Safety is of the utmost concern when we're loading children and unloading children, and especially at recess. But one thing that I did want to say is that duty is part of their day. Most of the duties that they do are already in their day. So we should be watching that we're not double dipping and paying somebody twice when they're already on the clock to do their job. So this really boils down to before school duty, which is a finite number. Buses arrive, cars arrive, you get out. In Marigny, it's 30 minutes. That's a given. In the afternoon, it's a little more tricky because cars come, buses come, there's traffic. So that's kind of a wild card. I also agree that it's most people are not going to put in a timesheet. I really feel like that. I will tell you as a principal, I have too much to do. I wouldn't be running around reminding people to do a timesheet. That would be another responsibility of their job, that they needed to do that. But I also believe that all of our employees deserve the raise that y'all are talking about, and that's the most important thing right now. And so I wouldn't want the whole plan to go down because of the 90 minutes. 90 minutes is really not enough time to supervise children during the day and keep them safe. So that's a bigger problem. 90 minutes is not appropriate for the age group that we teach, but that's beside the point. So I would ask that you vote for this today because that's what's the most important, and we'll just have to work out the minutia. It will be extra work for principals. It will be a lot of running after people for various reasons, but the employees deserve the raise. So thank you.
Ms. Brown?
I do agree with my mentor for most part. But the one thing that I do want to bring up is, as an administrator, keeping up with validating with the amount of leaving it. I would rather a clear answer of how are we going to manage these above 90 minutes. I like the motion for the amendment to number 5, however that works. Because it's not clear, and it's going to create a lot of division amongst the schools and teachers, and had this sounded much better in my head than it's sounding right now. But I will say, as an administrator, keeping up with duties and timesheets, even if it's just 15 or 20, that's a lot of extra that is almost not feasible for an administrator to do on top of everything else that they have to do. I do believe teachers do need to be paid. I like the idea of a flat stipend, maybe a duty stipend, but I feel like that part, that number 5, needs to be worked out with the details before approving that piece. But I agree with everything else.
Are we still talking on a substitute motion?
Yes. No.
We don't have a substitute motion, so we're a little bit out of our order here. But I have opened it back up for public comment.
Okay,
So Ms. Barrios, not gonna.
Lee Barrios, I just want to restate what somebody's already stated, that the working it out part is an administrative responsibility, okay? So and Mr. Jabbia has agreed to this. Again, I think it's kind of showing that, that you don't really support the superintendent in his duty to negotiate, which you all appointed him. But it would be his responsibility, which they've worked out, they're going to try to make a better situation in the fall. So you do have your answer in that Mr. Jabby or superintendent and central office are going to work out how this will work for the good of the students. So I ask that you vote for this MOU in its entirety. It can always be changed.
Okay, any other public comment?
Okay, Stephanie Underwood, Executive Vice President, again. I do want to just keep in mind that I hate to remember it, but last summer, one of the hangups was the 90-minute limit on duty. We gave and we said, ideally, duty should not be more than 90 minutes. So there was a whole year that teachers did give because it was released that 90 minutes was the limit at first. And then we came back to the table because of y'all voting to come back to the table, and that was something that we did negotiate on. So we brought it back this year. And it was agreed upon. And honestly, we would love hourly rate. That's what Tangi does. We know we can't do it. It's a negotiation. This is what the teams agreed that we could do, and this is why it's part of the package. I don't expect any principal to chase after teachers to turn in a timesheet. If they don't turn in a timesheet, then they don't get paid. There needs, just like bus drivers have to turn in their mileage logs and all this stuff, if they don't turn in by a certain date, they don't get some kind of money. I don't remember at this moment. But there are rules and there are consequences for doing the things you need to do and not doing the things you need to do. We're very willing to discuss with administration different ideas, different thoughts on how to get this done, but the negotiation table is not for the procedures. Okay, so that's why it's not in here how this will work. Okay, we don't want to put extra burden on principals, but at the same time, last year we started off with 90-minute cap altogether, and we gave. So we're just asking for something a little bit extra this year. Just wanted to remind you about that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mercedes Schneider, high school teacher, don't do little kids. I like for most of my kids to be able to go to the bathroom by themselves. Notice I said most. Last year, the 90-minute idea, I remember colleagues of mine who teach elementary school saying that they simply could not adhere to that. And I felt bad for them. And I want to remind the board what Mr. Osborne said about bad blood, because that's very real. And it makes the teachers feel like, yeah, you set something up that we simply can't keep in the name of safety. Also, the idea of trying to guess what each principal would do at each school, it really is an exercise in futility. And so what is necessary is the board revisit this, as it has been suggested at the end of September, when there is something in hand about how this is going over at each of the schools. And then you will have something solid to work with. I don't come to board meetings because I have so much going on, including caring for an aging parent. And so I don't have a Saturday most weeks, and so it's very exhausting. But the reason I came tonight is I wanted to see if it were going to go over better than it did last year, where, yes. And so I would hate for the board to be hung up on something so small, when really what is necessary cannot even happen tonight, and that is more information that can only happen in the future. So I encourage the board to vote for this raise, to vote for the full package. I commend the superintendent and Mr. Osborne and others for their work on this contract. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Brian Marks, high school history teacher at Fountainville Senior High School. As is my way, which I don't come here and talk often, but being a history teacher, a history metaphor. You would know it, but from Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. It's actually from Mikhail Gorbachev, it's actually from the Russian, but Reagan embraced it wholeheartedly in the 1980s, and that's one of the reasons we ended the Cold War without everybody dying. Because they trusted each other to therefore afterwards verify what they trusted. When he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, he didn't say, but before I say that, I need to know what jackhammers you're going to use, and we need it all written down, or we'll take a pass. No, he said the big picture, and he trusted the people that worked for him to implement it. You have your attorney, you have your superintendent, you have your financial people, not the Federation, telling you you're going to end up costing you more money. It's not the numbers that you're saying, it's much lower. And practically, I mean, again, I'm at high school, so it's different, but Mr. Corley, our principal, he gave us, we had a nice dinner, the nice lunch the last day of the year. He didn't knock on all the doors making sure we all got a dinner. If we don't show up, you don't get. If we trust the teachers of the elementary schools to keep these 3 to 7-year-old precious babies alive, safe, protected from day to day, do we really not trust the same people enough that they're going to steal $15 and all these other things? I mean, we don't take the light bulbs out the walls when we leave for the summer. We don't do these things. We're responsible, professional people. And here we are. I know I'm out of time. We did this last year. I don't want to see another summer with red from sea to shining sea back there, because here we are with a happy story. We're getting a $2,500 raise. If y'all say no, we're back to last summer, and that's not going to be good for anybody.
Okay, thanks. Any other public comment? Okay, we're back to the board queue. Mr. Harrell?
Thank you, President Green. I originally pressed the button to say we could solve this whole Chromebook issue with getting rid of Chromebooks in elementary grades. I would love this, but now we've kind of dived off into something completely different. I get what the previous commenter said about trusting our superintendent and our attorney. I mean, it's an attorney, so you got to trust them a little bit, I guess. But I'm so confused because we're being told to trust our administration when last month we were told the board had the authority to make these decisions, to not trust them. So you got to pick a side, that you just can't pick your side every time. That being said, maybe the solution, because I get trust in elementary and they're not going to steal the $15, but the administration still of the elementary schools still have to account for that money and spend their time, hours of their time every week doing it on top of what they're already doing. Maybe the way is if we can't fix this, compensate the administrators having to do all the extra time. Just saying.
Thank you, President Green. I'm going to have to stand by my original second of the motion that Ms. Hurstis put up, Ms. Hurstis. And I agree, trust, but I also say verify. And I have to say this, in that I don't want us to get into the minutia of it. I don't think it's our role and responsibility to play the role of administration. They came to us. Here it is, support it, don't support it. I'm supporting it primarily because of the salaries increases. But I have to say also that come September, October, November, we're looking at information and it's not working. Because when somebody said something about 90 minutes, it, seems reasonable. 90 minutes in high school seems reasonable. 90 minutes in an elementary school, pre-K through 6, pre-K through 5, is not. Okay, so I think we have to have a happy medium. I'm trusting that y'all have gotten to that happy medium, and we're just gonna be given the $15 an hour, and we'll see where it is. But come October, I'm going to, just as we've been reminded about last summer, I'm going to remind everyone that if we come to this point in October, and it's costing us a lot of money, because technically it's part of their duty, it's part of their job description. But if it's costing us too much money, then I want people to know ahead of time why we are so adamant about not bleeding it. Ms. Prevost says we're not going to bleed it. It won't bleed it. But again, I'm going to remember this May 28th, that we had this conversation about, we will have we need to go back to the table, or y'all need to go back to the table on that item. So please, I know you're going to do your due diligence. Thank you.
Ms. Rufino Gallagher.
I will just say I hate that we have to vote all or none, because all the talk about what's in the job description of a teacher, they should do their duty, we shouldn't pay them extra, all that. But yet the job of a coach is to coach the team and try to win a state championship, but yeah, we're gonna benefit them, or whatever that word is I'm looking for, if they win. Like, that's part of their job. You don't go to be a coach to lose. That's not why you go to be a coach. So unfortunately, while I don't agree with that, I can't not vote for it, because, right, the raise is the most important part of this entire thing. And you have to vote for the whole thing, but I'm going to recommend that next time, don't come with all of this. Come with the big stuff together, not the tedious stuff, because that's where this board is going to have is split on, we're going to vote for it, because that's the big part of it, is what we want it for the teachers. But I think if we're nickel and diming over if it's a teacher's job to do duty, but yeah, we're going to compensate is the word I'm looking for, coaches on winning a district or state championship, that's their job to do. We don't hire you to be a football coach to have the team to lose. Your goal is to win. So I think it's a not a catch-22, like it goes against, they both go against each other. That's part of your job, is to win. I don't know why we have to give them extra if they win that. It's my opinion. But again, we have to vote for all of it. It's not a little part of it, it's all or none. I don't like that.
Ms. Fauntleroy.
Thank you. Really quick. Something that keeps coming up and we keep going back to is 90 minutes. So my question is, I guess for both of you guys, why 90 minutes? Because I think that's I think both your principals and Ms. Hanson are on to something. 90 minutes is not enough at the elementary level. It is at the high school.
I'm not sure how Tangi determined the 90 minutes, but that's where we stole it from. So we kind of look at our regional competitors, and if they have an idea, it's an arms race, basically. If they have it, we try to have it. Of course, they have it at hourly rate, but that's where we got it from.
Maybe as part of this relook, that you guys look at that time frame, maybe, maybe there's some leverage you can adjust there in terms of time or whatever.
Because I did 300 minutes a week, morning and afternoon, for 18 years. And, you can say we made more, but our compensation was because we worked more, So it was part of my job to do 300 minutes more. That doesn't even count the middle of the day. So, I think 90 minutes is unrealistic at the elementary level. So.
Yeah, I think once we sit down, everything would be on the table.
Okay.
And I think more than one person has mentioned a tier system, depending on elementary. Well, obviously, if you have the littles, it's a little bit more labor intensive.
And I also mentioned to Mr. Javi and Mr. Alfonso earlier, if we could even, sort of piggybacking on Ms. Hursty's, if we could even just have volunteers that would take the flat rate to do all mornings and all afternoons, or something where we weren't, I think if y'all can work around the timesheet thing, that would be great, but.
Thank you. I see no other board members queued up, so we do have a motion to accept the memorandum of understanding, so please vote, board members.
It does say around September 30th, in case, there's a storm or
Yeah.
something. It says around September 30th, in case September 30th is on a Sunday. What is with
You gotta vote out loud.
The motion is to accept the MOU with the directive for the parties to revisit item number 5 in regards to duty pay sometime around September 30th, 2025.
Thank you. Oh, there it is, okay.
Ms. Hanson, how would you like to vote, since you've logged out?
There was no amendment. It's just to accept or decline the MOU as written on this paper. Okay.
She logged out of her computer. She didn't like shut down.
She-
Ms. Moore's not here. She left.
She burned the hard
Mr.
drive.
Harrell, did you log out also? No. Harold.
I'm really not happy that we have not done anything with this time frame now, because I don't think we're gonna have any information by
Okay.
One not present.
Oh.
Ms. Isabella.
Okay, that motion carries 10 yeas, and Ms. Moore had to leave, so. Last item on our agenda is 3 minutes. Mr. Osborne?
Just wanted to thank the board. Appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir, thank you.
September 30th.
And there are no announcements, so with no further business, this meeting is adjourned.